Kevin Rudd has really outlasted his use-by date at this point. He's become so insufferable and such a liability that Anthony Albanese packed him off to serve as ambassador to the United States, getting Kevin Rudd out of Anthony Albanese's hair. But that decision has now come back to haunt Anthony Albanese, as Kevin Rudd has turned into an embarrassment, a distraction, and a bit of a liability. Case in point is Kevin Rudd's very personal criticism of Donald Trump, expressed in no uncertain terms. Here are just a couple of examples.
In the last 4 years has been run by a village idiot, competent in its national statecraft, and the United States increasingly incompetent in its national statecraft under Trump.
But the underpinnings of it were still incoherent because Trump himself was incoherent. And he waxed and waned from being in love with dictators to not knowing what he wanted from dictators.
I think the general consensus amongst anyone concerned with the public policy process, domestic or international, thinks he's nuts.
I stand by what I wrote then. That was in a pre-Trump world. I hope to publish again soon, hopefully early next year, the future of US-China relations under President Trump. And then the subtitle will be A Call for a New Tremendous Piece of Very Big, Beautiful Mar-a-Lago Chocolate Cake.
Now, what is striking is both the words Kevin Rudd uses and the way he criticizes Donald Trump, the tone, the vindictiveness, the personal nature of it. He doesn't just criticize Donald Trump, but he scorns Donald Trump. Perhaps it's Kevin Rudd's mode of speaking, and perhaps this is how he normally speaks. However, he sounds insufferable, arrogant, and condescending. He sounds like an outright jerk. He sounds like someone that I would not want to work with or do business with or really have very much contact with. Now, he sounds so smug and supercilious that I do wonder how he actually gets on with anyone. Now, of course, you might argue that I personally sound somewhat like Kevin Rudd or Malcolm Turnbull when I'm speaking, or I sound like a young liberal, as some people have said. But, for the record, I've never been a member of any political party, which includes ever being a member of the Liberal Party or a young liberal. And at least at the time of recording, I've not joined any political party. Further, I'm also not the ambassador to any country. And I would say that we should hold ambassadors to a slightly higher standard than we hold random people on YouTube. I'm not going out representing Australia on the world stage trying to negotiate and deal with major trade agreements, for example. Now, Kevin Rudd's comments were vicious, and they've also infected his Twitter feed. They're not just oral comments, they're not just comments made on shows, which would be, of course, rather bad, but they also permeate throughout all of Kevin Rudd's actions. Here's just a couple of selections from his Twitter feed. Donald Trump is the most destructive president in history. He drags America and democracy through the mud. He thrives on fomenting, not healing, division. He abuses Christianity, church, and Bible to justify violence, all aided and abetted by Murdoch's Fox News network in America, which feeds this. Kevin Rudd here is evidencing not just Trump derangement syndrome, but News Corp derangement syndrome. That seeming obsession that Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull have with News Corp, which itself is a separate topic, but it is very misplaced. After all, the elephant in the room is that the ABC has the biggest market penetration in Australia, and it is entirely taxpayer-funded and exempt from outside external discipline. The ABC is also at least as biased, if not more so, than News Corp. Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull don't seem to have a problem with that, just with News Corp. But that's a separate issue. Kevin Rudd had also stated, Donald Trump is a traitor to the West. Murdoch was Trump's biggest backer, and Murdoch's Fox Television backs Putin too. What rancid treachery. This was all the way back in 2022. So clearly, Kevin Rudd doesn't think very much of Donald Trump. Now, it's going to be a little bit difficult for Kevin Rudd to work with Donald Trump when he regards Trump as a traitor to the West. I dare say that's going to be a rather awkward conversation. But again, this tweet further evidences Kevin Rudd's News Corp derangement syndrome, seemingly neglecting the fact that you've got myriad biased left-wing networks in Australia and in the United States. Now, of course, Kevin Rudd has deleted these tweets, but he only did so when Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election. Notably, this was on Donald Trump winning. He waited until after Donald Trump secured the victory. He didn't even delete these back when Donald Trump was running. He waited that long. It's mind-boggling that it never crossed Kevin Rudd's mind that Donald Trump might actually be victorious in this election. I'm aghast that he never even thought that might be the case. Because even if he believed that Donald Trump might lose, he would at least have perceived that there's a chance that he was going to win. And all of the polling indicated there was at least a chance, even if Donald Trump was not ahead in the polls. It was never a 0% chance of him winning. But Kevin Rudd doesn't seem to actually be the smartest person around, even though he seems to think that he actually is. Now, not only that, the decision to clandestinely delete the tweets is rather duplicitous looking. It looks as if he is trying to slink away in the night, trying to pretend that he never said these tweets, trying to sweep it under the carpet. But it isn't really fooling anyone, because we've got a little bit of a Streisand effect, so to speak, i.e. the cover-up here is worse than the proverbial crime. The decision to try to obfuscate these tweets and pretend they never existed was actually a little bit worse, it seems, than them existing beforehand. Because it's as if he is acknowledging there's a problem with the tweets, but doesn't actually want to say it out loud. Now, Anthony Albanese is standing by Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd as well has stood his ground. They seemingly believe that they can weather this storm. They seemingly believe as well that because Donald Trump has accepted former detractors such as J.D. Vance or RFK Jr. or Marco Rubio back into the fold, that Kevin Rudd could be treated similarly. However, they sought to distance themselves from their prior comments. They sought to argue why their prior comments no longer represented what they believed in. They sought to argue why they now believed that Donald Trump should be president. Kevin Rudd, however, has never sought to distance himself from his prior comments. He's never resigned from those expressed views. He's never extended an olive branch. Kevin Rudd seemingly still thinks poorly of Donald Trump. Kevin Rudd still seemingly thinks Donald Trump is beneath him, still seemingly thinks Donald Trump is a village idiot, or he's botching his statecraft, or that Donald Trump is a traitor to the West. If Kevin Rudd doesn't believe those things, he should come out and correct the record so that Australia can progress its relationship going forward. Australia's decision, therefore, for its part, is a little bit insulting to our largest ally. After all, if we know that Donald Trump is the president, and we have an ambassador that thinks so negatively about Donald Trump and thinks that Donald Trump is a traitor to the West, and we are keeping that ambassador, that would imply that Australia also thinks the same. How is the US to think of this? How would the US regard Australia when it is negotiating trade agreements, for example? If you've got an ambassador we've actively chosen to keep in position despite this controversy, what signal does that send to the United States and to Donald Trump? At this point, we need someone who can work with Donald Trump, not someone who condescendingly thinks Donald Trump is beneath them. This is especially since the United States is looking at bringing in tariffs across the board. Australia needs to be able to put its best foot forward in support of our farmers and our primary industries and our commodities and all of the other goods that we manufacture. Australia needs to be able to make a case to the United States, not have an ambassador that talks down to the United States and talks down to the president. It's as if Donald Trump is seen as somehow inadequate in Kevin Rudd's eyes. Now, this, of course, is a little bit of an ironic situation. Kevin Rudd was so contemptuous of Donald Trump's statecraft, so to speak. But now it seems that Kevin Rudd is the one who has made a mess of things. Kevin Rudd's position as ambassador is making a mess of our statecraft with the United States. This is a little bit hypocritical, therefore, on Kevin Rudd's part. If he thinks that Donald Trump is amateur hour, then surely Kevin Rudd in this situation would have to be the same. Surely keeping Kevin Rudd would be a very bad decision. But it's not just that Kevin Rudd can't get on with Donald Trump. It's that Kevin Rudd is so tone deaf and so ignorant that he couldn't even perceive that Donald Trump might win the election, and he couldn't even put his finger on the pulse to work out what was going on. Kevin Rudd seems to be manifestly out to lunch. He might be able to deal with the Democrats, but he doesn't seem to have a very good relationship with the Republicans or with Donald Trump, and therefore he simply can't serve Australia's interests. But of course, let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think Kevin Rudd should stay, or do you think Kevin Rudd's position is now untenable as ambassador to the United States? Let me know what you think.